Hi, word nerds. Okay, so this week we have two sets of words. We have words that mean before, so like pre, for, and ante. So these are some roots. And then we have words that mean a word that means after, which is post. We also have on this other one words that mean above or over, which are hyper and super, and below or under, which is hypo. So hyper, hypo, and sub. On these, you can technically leave these together. I didn't see any reason that I needed to specifically cut them because they'll be totally fine. So I'm just going to leave them together. Now, if you feel like you need to cut between these guys, you see this little strip and have one way up on the top of the page and then the other way on the bottom, you can. But I didn't see the need for that on my notebook. Okay. So make sure that you have the words that are before pointing backwards. Don't make them go up or down or anything like that because they make more sense with the arrows going before. So I'm going to glue down. Oh no, I totally ripped mine just now. Oh, you can't make this up. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because mistakes happen, sometimes you guys get freaked out when things happen to you. I'm just going to glue it down. And then look, my other one, I'm just going to glue it down on top of it. Just like it never even happened. I don't need to tape it. Look, no mistake. Haha. But you do need to make sure you fold them back. That way makes it easier when it's time to write on them. There we go. Alright, and then I have my word post, which means after. The other one I'll glue down in a minute. I don't have to do that quite yet. And then I'm going to make sure I bend that one backwards. There we go. Perfect. Except for the part where I ripped it, but that's fine. Okay. So with each of these words, I'm just going to write down, instead of a definition, I'm writing down a couple of words that have that root in it. So a couple of words that have pre, so these would all mean before, would be prepare. Means that you're making sure that you have things ready before it's time for you to need them. So we have prepare. We have prejudice, which means you make a judgment about somebody before you actually know them. So you make a judgment, so judge before you know them. We have predict. And we know that dict means say. So you say something is going to happen before it actually happens. And then preview. Sorry, I said that very oddly. Preview. So you get to see it before it happens. So we see movie previews all the time. I guess these days you call them trailers more on YouTube and stuff, but those used to be called previews and they would show before a movie. Actually, still today, if you go to a real movie theater and you see all of the trailers before you watch your actual movie, those are previews. They used to be a lot more popular back in like my day. Alright, so now we have for. F-O-R-E. Notice that it's spelled differently than the number. So we have forecast, which means you make a cast about the weather before it happens. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Forward. And that is spelled differently than like an email. It has the E in it. Forward is, it should be an O, not an A. Forward is usually a chapter in a book. Often it's going to be a nonfiction like biography or something that tells you about it before you start reading. And foresight, it's the ability to think about things before it happens. Like, okay, if I say that I have the foresight to pack an extra change of clothes before I go to the party, it might mean that maybe something had happened at the party, like I get something spilled on my outfit and I need to change. And then we have forehead. It's the skin and covering that's on your head before you get to the brain. All right, ante. Now these are going to be harder for most of you to connect to. Even for me, I was having a hard time picking from the list of things that I use often off of here. So the first word I'm going to put is antenna. So it's A-N-T, A-N-T-E-N-N-A-E. It's spelled very odd. So an antenna we see on like different bugs. They used to have antenna on electronics. Some of your parents might have an antenna on their car if they have an older vehicle usually, to get some broadcasting. But if I'm thinking about an antenna, it's what gets the service before it comes to the house. So usually it was used to grab the signal before we had Wi-Fi and stuff. That made things a lot faster and easier. Bugs also have antenna, and it helps them touch things before they get to them, to make sure they know what's coming. We also have the word anterior, not interior like designing, but anterior. And that's coming before something. Usually it's a position. They use that word a lot in the medical field and sports. And then antebellum, which is a time before war, specifically the Civil War. Antebellum. Alright, on post, this is the word that means after. So we've got a couple of examples. We have post date, P-O-S-T-D-A-T-E. Post dating something means that you put the date on it after it actually happens. Sometimes people have to do that on paperwork to make sure that they get the right documents on there. We also have postpone. We've had to do a lot of postponing with this COVID era. So that means that you have to make something happen after the actual scheduled date. And then posterior is kind of like anterior, but it's the opposite. So posterior, like you could think of like a booty. I think some people use that word as like a butt. But a butt comes after the rest of the body usually. I just realized it slid. I'm sorry. Alright, so let's look at the other set of words. So I have to find them. Oh, here's mine. Because I did not cut these apart, I'm just going to put glue all the way on the back side of the two words. Like I said, I didn't see a need to specifically cut them apart. They're just fine, like they are. Alrighty. So, bend all of the flaps. Alright, so things that are above or over something. So we've got hyper. So we've got the word hyperactive. So that means over the normal amount of activeness that people have. That means like you're just almost crazy with excitement and you're very, very, very busy with what you're doing. We also have hyperbole, which is our figurative language for exaggeration. So you are over exaggerating on something. And then we have hypersensitive, which means somebody would be overly sensitive. Hypersensitive. Overly sensitive. And that could be their emotions or just how their body feels. All right, we've got super. Super is above. So we've got supervise. When somebody supervises, so VIS means look or watch, and super means over, so they would watch over what somebody is doing. We have a superintendent, which is a school position, and it's somebody who watches over the entire school district. Superior means that you are better than somebody else, so you are over them. And then I also wanted to use the word supernatural. So these are things that are over the natural world. They're above the natural world. So like people consider things like ghosts or vampires and stuff as supernatural. So it would be above what we believe is natural. Alright, so we've got two little flaps left. We've got hypo and sub. So hypo means under. So we've got hypothermia. We know therm is talking about temperature or heat. Actually, it means heat. So under, heat. So that means that the body is colder than it should be. We have hypothesis, which is a science term. So thesis is like a belief, a statement that's believed in, and then hypo means below or under. So this is something that happens kind of like under the thesis before you actually prove it. You have to come up with this beforehand. So it's kind of like below the actual research. We also have hypocrite. So a hypocrite is somebody who says one thing but does the other. So crit means like, we could think of like critical. So they're below criticism. So it's like they believe that they haven't gotten to the point where people can judge them. But in truth, a hypocrite does the opposite of what they say. So really, that's not the case. Alright, so sub, last one. We've got 3 words that we're going to put. So sub means below, too. So we're going to put subway. So if you've ever been to a big city and ridden on a subway or seen one in a movie, the subway is under the ground. We have a submarine, which is a device or a vehicle that can drive under the water, so in the marine life. Subpar. Being on par means like you're on average, and subpar means you're below average, so subpar is not good. And then subscribe, which is a word a lot of you know. So we know scribe or scribe means to write, and sub means under. So I would say the subscriptions historically, they used to write their name under on a list and like agree to some services. Now today, subscribing means like clicking on a button and getting the videos as they come. So it's still kind of like the same concept. You get things as they come out, but today we don't write anything. That's why this word probably doesn't make as much sense like all put together, because this is more of like a piece of history that they've repurposed over time. Alright guys, that's it on our words this week. Have fun!